I just think it's such a great time to build companies. There's so much change in the air right now. Large companies are forcing their employees to go try new software. It's a rare thing. Like Shopify famously is like mandating designers have to try AI products and performance reviews. Usually you have to like claw and scratch to get companies to pay attention to you. And now they're like forcing their employees out. So like this is a great time to build. Go start a company. I really believe in it.
All right, we got Stephen Haney here, founder, CEO of Papers. Stephen, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing great. Great to see you, Ben.
Let's just kick it off. Tell us how the heck did you get here? Like what was your path into founding this company? And
Yeah, 100%. So I started a company with a co-founder called Modulz back in like 2018. And Modulz was working on designer-developer handoff. This was like pre-LLM, of course. So it's like a very different world that we were working in. And we were working on, basically design tools to help design system makers. We built Radix UI there, Stitches for those who are early into CSS and JS. Stitches isn't around anymore, but Radix certainly is. And so that was kind of Modulz' claim to fame. We spent about 4 years working on that company, and Radix was obviously getting huge adoption, but we didn't feel like there was a venture scale business around it. And so we decided to sell the company and sold it to WorkOS, which is like an auth and identity company. And fantastic company. I worked there. I led product for about 2 years. But I really, really wanted to get back to the design space. It's like just where my passion is. And it's kind of solving for like, whose problems do I want to solve? Who do I want to be on Zoom calls with? And hearing about, the issues they have in their day to day and then trying to fix those. And for me, that's creative professionals. And it's just like, it's easy for me to wake up in the morning and go work on the problems of a design tool. And so that was, so about 2 years ago, I started Paper, and got kind of back into the design world, and so happy I did.
Beautiful. And then, tell us a little bit, like, it sounds at the high level when you talk about the problem that Modulz was solving, it's like, yeah, that's still a problem, or that's a problem. Like, so what wasn't there about the venture scale outcome? Like, what did you get wrong? What assumptions weren't quite there?
Yeah, totally. I think, one interesting thing is when you're solving for both designers and developers and trying to solve this handoff in the middle, what you'll find is that both sides want the other side to change. And so you'll get a lot of conflicting information, and you'll get information that isn't actually about the user themselves. It's about they want someone else to work in a different way. And I think we were navigating that maze for quite a long time and trying to figure out, exactly what the right product is. It turned out the right product was for design engineers, and it was basically a component library that was unstyled. And that was, one of the first to take that concept, and it really did solve a big problem for design engineers. We saw it, and now, with LLMs, of course, it's like almost the default component library that's embedded now. The licensing software is a strange business. You're basically selling. It was like an open source project. How do you sell that? There's companies that have done it, but it wasn't super inspiring to us. Like that wasn't what made us interested in running a business. And so I'm really glad we did it. I think it's like great for the community that it existed. And then we've seen derivative libraries, and now we have like Column, my co-founder from Modulz, is doing base UI, which is kind of like Radix 2 in a way. And so I think it's like, I'm really glad it exists, but it was one of those things that was like, yeah, we could charge for this, but I don't know, it never felt quite right. And so that's kind of what we decided to move on.
Gotcha. So then you're at WorkOS, seemingly, at least from the outside, feels like great company, interesting problems, all what more could someone want? And then you left to do it again. So talk to us a little bit about like what was happening at WorkOS that all of a sudden you were starting to think, oh, maybe I have another startup kind of whispering in my ear.
Yeah, WorkOS is awesome, and I got a chance. It was really my first time to run product, to be a product person. And I'd always been an engineer. I've been a designer, and so it was my first now I'm a product person, and it was a great learning experience because I got to not care about how hard it is to do something, or like even, like what the technical constraints are. It was just like, where is the market and how do I think about users, and like finding the abstractions that are going to create the best value for users. And I think that was a really good practice in like going back and starting the next company. And I feel so much more grounded in how I think about market discovery, product market fit hunting the second time around. I think second time founder, you always learn from your mistakes. And then also getting to learn from Michael, the CEO and founder of WorkOS, and work with him closely. I was able to kind of see what he does, and that was really helpful too. And so we went, I think we 10x'd WorkOS while I was there. My project was Auth-Kit, and that was successfully launched. And so it felt just like a natural time. We also had the company was growing and a lot of new awesome people were coming in. And so it was just kind of this natural moment that you could kind of hand over the reins to the next crew. And like I said, it was really getting back to wanting to make creative tooling. That was the driving force. And I didn't know exactly what at the time. It was like, here's this problem space I want to solve for. I don't know what my product idea is yet. and looking around, it was kind of like, well, gosh, it's hard to have this conversation without saying the word Figma. There's such a dominant force in the design community, especially, 2 years ago. But my thinking was, design tools historically take a really long time to build. I think Figma took 5 years before they were out of beta. Sketch, I've heard a similar amount of time. And so I was like, if I start now, by the time we have a product that's actually good, Figma will be kind of like into the next phase of their enterprise growth. And maybe there'll be some space underneath for like the next underground design tool. And I think that's proven out pretty well. But that was kind of my theory going into it. I was like, I don't know what it is yet, but we're going to get started. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of a lead by the time the next, phase turns over.
And so that's interesting, because we often talk to founders and we often say, especially if they're at a company, we usually try to tell them, like, why don't you validate some things before you leave, before you're just like, hey, let's go start a company. But it sounds like for you mostly just kind of had an itch and a desire, but it's not, what did you have before you like left? Was that it? Like that was enough, and you just had kind of the belief that you would execute, or was there more there?
I'm a huge believer in the YCism, don't die, and the idea of founder market fit is actually one of the most important things to a company, and it kind of leads if you have great founder market fit, which is like the thing you're the best person in the world to go build. You won't die because you literally can't. It's like, this is what I would do anyway. And so I think that is maybe more powerful than even some of the execution risk versus market risk kind of. I think that's like second level underneath that too. And I think there was a chance when we set out, it could have turned out, hey, this isn't a venture scale business either. But it's what I love to do. And that was kind of the higher order thing that motivated me. And luckily we've been able to find, we can get more into this later too, but we've been able to find some semblance of product market fit, and we're growing really fast, which is awesome. And so I think, but if you optimize for that, if you're only thinking about creating venture scale outcomes, or you're only thinking about your ARR, I think when it gets hard, and startups do get hard and they get easy and then they get hard again, you might give up, or you might pivot faster than you should, or you might make bad decisions. And so I think by doing something you truly believe in and truly love doing, it kind of gives you a compass a little bit more to live through some of those harder times in the startups. So, I mean, who knows? We're still early in our journey. We'll see how everything turns out. But that was my philosophy going into it.
Gotcha. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the design landscape and where you guys fit in. So we just did a survey that we published on the Design and AI report. It's almost 1,000 designers, and one of the things that stuck out to us was how many designers are now shipping code. I think maybe even just 4 or 5 years ago, if you would have asked 1,000 designers how many of you ship code, it would have been 1%, maybe 2%, right? And we had about half. And so that's a very, very big difference. Tell me a little bit about kind of your philosophy as paper is getting built. Because even 2 years ago when you started, that was a very different realm, right? So tell me a little bit about hey, when you started paper, what was the hypothesis? And then what are you seeing now? Like what's paper's role in the ecosystem now as you see it?
Another very early bet we made was actually working on the human editor first, even though AI was already starting to take off and there was a lot of pressure to do AI companies. You could raise a lot of money if you were an AI company. We waited on AI quite a bit. And it was because it wasn't clear to me yet how AI would help designers. And I mean, in some ways, we're still figuring that out. But I think there was definitely an inflection point last December when we saw Claude Code in the terminal kind of land, and everyone was building over the holidays with Claude Code. And what I saw was that designers were doing it. And I was shocked. I didn't think designers would be in the terminal prompting away in a CLI to Claude Code, but they were. And I think it's the power of what it was giving you is just so great that you had to, like you had to be there to get this power. And it was really useful, for designers to be able to show interactive prototypes, to be able to feel the flow themselves as they're developing. And so I think it's really, really cool that we have these new tools now. So I mean, I just think it's great. I think like one of the ways I see design is like a forcing function for decisions in an org, if that makes sense. Like everyone can see what to do once you have a wireframe in front of you and you're like, oh, not that, or like this, and it really helps. Design is that forcing function to help people move decisions forward. And that doesn't change at all in the age of AI. Like that is an organizational need. It's a human need. And so I see AI as like this tool that's going to let designers do that job better and faster and keep up with engineering teams who are moving faster. With these like higher fidelity interactive prototypes, and being able to like feel things like focus states, or when you hit enter, where does the focus move to? Is that correct? Does it show the right information at the right time? These are things that are a little more abstract in a 2D canvas, and I think prototypes are really cool for helping you explore that. I still think you need both though, and so we actually started with the 2D canvas because I think they're just for different phases of building, and so I see this like, in my mind, Figma was never great for prototyping, like the noodles, drawing noodles between things, and it was never a great prototyping solution. And so I basically just see that we've added on this new prototyping capability for designers on top of the infinite canvas, which I think is still very useful. So what we're most excited about is just helping make that very easy and accessible for designers to use. We started with the infinite canvas. We're going to be building some prototyping things, not so much the prototyping itself, but actually more like, how do you deploy them? How do you get comments? How do stakeholders discover which prototypes exist? How do you not have to set up local databases and like environment variables and, these more engineering things? I think there's a lot of new problems as we've come down to the desktop again. I'm really interested in working on. So these will be some of the things we're working on over the next little bit. But, I think it's a really exciting time overall.
Yeah. So I think that's super interesting. So what we've seen is a lot of folks are saying, okay, these new tools are wonderful and they feel like they're giving you superpowers. But right after we start actually like either doing prototypes or visual design, chaos ensues because of exactly what you said. It's like now that we have prototypes in URLs, how do we link to those? So where are we linking to those from? So it could be in Slack, it could be in emails, it could be in text messages, whatever. So now we have URLs everywhere. And then how do you give feedback on a URL? You can't do it in, Figma comments doesn't work on URL. So now you have to give feedback in Looms or in Slack messages or whatever. So now
everywhere.
So almost every company is reporting this chaotic mess. We've had the proliferation of tools, new workflows, and it's basically caused this like, everything's everywhere and it's very hard to keep up with. And so interesting that you're starting to think like, okay, once we let people do some of the visual design work, how do we continue to support them beyond the visual design, beyond the prototyping, the collaboration tooling and all that good stuff?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think all the reasons that Figma won with the collaboration and real-time multiplayer are still as relevant as ever. And it's just we've gone back into the like local first era, we were naming file _ final 2, like those problems are back. And so how do we do both? And but I think it's really exciting challenge and interesting stuff to work on. Yeah.
And then tell us about, so it in my head I thought maybe like paper is much better with agents than a lot of other tools. And when we spoke, you're like, well, sure, we paper is basically native HTML CSS, which is sort of a language that agents get. Was that 2 years ago when you made that decision? Was it that more just like I don't know. Was it just like, hey, you got a little bit lucky that agents became such a thing, and like luckily we built in the language that they speak, or like, I guess like how do you think about building for agents? If you're building for humans first, how do you also make sure that agents have a good experience here? Because if you build from agents for agents from the ground up, what I've seen is at least like what got me excited about paper was one is it felt a lot faster because there was no translation. Token spend was much lower, which didn't even, it's like when Claude Design came out, and we thought, wow, this is going to be like this big thing. And the feedback has been just like, no one can afford it, which is so funny because in the age of design tools have become more and more accessible over time. I used to have to pirate Photoshop for 900. Like, no student has $900 to go to Radio Shack, right, to buy Illustrator, and then another $900 to buy Photoshop. And then I remember interviewing someone who told me their 12-year-old daughter was using Figma because it was free, and she was getting into design. I thought, God, that's so amazing. And now all of a sudden we're going back into this like, oh yeah, you want a design tool? It's $370 a month or whatever it is, right? It's like, okay, none of
At
us,
least.
yeah. So I think that's it. So affordability is actually an interest where, and maybe it's temporary, but it's still like, that temporary phase is a year or two, whatever it is. So it seems faster, and it seems to also get better output because it's HTML, CSS, which we've also heard from designers is like, hey, this AI stuff looks great, or it sounds great, but in terms of output quality, the tools are still not there. But it does seem like the ones that speak native to agents are closer.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think we still have work to do on that. Like, I'm not happy with the quality, even in paper, of the agent output. Like, we still need to make it better. But I think we are ahead of anyone who has built a proprietary rendering engine. Which is basically every design tool that's ever existed has built their own rendering engine. And the problem with that, especially if you don't publish the data format, like I don't think the common ones do, is that the agents just have no idea how to use it. And so they have to kind of like learn the plugin API through looking at docs, and it's very expensive. It's a great point of like the token spend using paper is dramatically lower, like orders of magnitude lower, because the agents they already know HTML and CSS. And so when the agent wants to make a change in paper, it literally just sends us HTML, and that's it. And so it can write HTML. It's one of the things it's most efficient at. It'll be pretty confident in the job it's doing because it can, think in HTML kind of natively. And then the token spend is lower because it doesn't have to go back and forth and try to figure out translation. It was a little bit luck and a little bit like, luck is created by putting yourself in the right place kind of thing. I think we had agents weren't there, about 2 years ago when we started, or they were like very early days. But it did feel like, the big breakthrough was actually M1, like ARM-based Macs. That was what let the performance be good enough that we could use HTML and CSS as the design canvas. And so if you look at like Figma 9 years ago, when they started, they'd built this custom rendering engine. They almost had to. The performance wouldn't have been good enough yet.
Yeah, I couldn't believe, I remember talking to Dylan back in the day, 2012, 2013, and the idea of building Sketch or Illustrator in the cloud or in the browser, I was just like, dude, no way. It just can't do it. Like, that's not where professional tooling happens.
And it's honestly, that software, it's like one of the best pieces of software of all time is the Figma renderer, amazing technology. But we saw an opportunity where computers have gotten a lot faster, and moving the designer closer to the end format, if we can do it in a way that's like not adding constraints, that was important.
Yeah, I've seen HTML, CSS products where you're like, oh, okay, I'll just put this here. And it's like, no, you can't do that. And you're like, okay, so now I'm actually constrained by the medium. Yeah, and paper doesn't do that.
Yeah, when you're exploring, you want the freedom. And I think, I do see two phases of like, sometimes you see the double diamond thing or whatever, but I do think there's like a exploring phase, a building phase, and sometimes you go back and forth. But when you're exploring, like the constraint, you don't want those constraints. They're not helpful. Yeah, I think that's a common trap. That's something we learned at Modulz was, seeing we were introducing these code constraints, and designers were like, this isn't helpful to me. It's not what I get hired for. It's not my job. So yeah, 100%. And I think that was more our motivation, was like, I think computers are fast enough now. We can move to an HTML and CSS without adding constraints. And then the result of what the designer makes will be closer to the final output. And we'll have less, at that time it was like designer to developer handoff. It turned out that was really good for designer to agent handoff in kind of like basically the exact same way. So yeah, definitely fortuitous, and something we'll continue to lean into, of being very code native, agent native.
Okay, so there's a little bit of luck that you built in a way that both agents and humans could live side by side beautifully. I do think over the last 4 to 6 months, it's really hit me just the power of having tools where agents and humans work together very well, meaning like you both want when the agents are working, you want the humans to have visibility into what they're doing. You want the humans to be able to interrupt and interact and guide and all that good stuff. And when the agents are working, you also want then the humans to be able to take over if and when they want and dial things, have the control that the human wants. And so I'm always looking for people who are building that way. How do you think about building a product where those two types of entities are able to work side by side?
Yeah, it's something we're still solving. I mean, it's really, really important. I think clearly if you find a product where agents and humans are collaborating well, your next challenge is going to be to make it work in every which way possible. And what I mean by that is we built it first with Paper Desktop, a local MCP server. And we did that so that'd be very fast and the agent could talk, we could take screenshots instantly and go back and forth. And it could piggyback on the user's auth. Like they're already logged into Paper. And so that was great. It's working really well. Everything's taking off. But immediately now it's like, well, that's cool, but I actually want to be able to prompt from my phone, or I want my CI process to be able to create canvases, or I want to have 8 agents working at once on 8 different files. And we're like, oh, wow, we didn't actually consider that. So let's let's go figure out how to make that work.
8 on 8 different files. Yeah. How do you give someone visibility into that kind of chaos?
Well, it's funny. It's like I think of it more of like this agent scale challenge, which is like we initially were thinking kind of human scale. And what it is like people want to try a bunch of stuff and then come back later and check it out and turn it from this like building phase into this review kind of process. And not all the time. Like sometimes you do just want to collaborate with the agent working very closely. But a lot of times we saw Rid is doing this. He'll generate, like 30 variations. And, as agent UI is, it's not perfect, but there's some gems in there where you can like pull ideas out and then keep going.
I see. Just go for quantity. Hey, just come up with crazy stuff. Let's again, the flare way. And then I'll come in as the human and be almost the curator of the thing.
Curator. Absolutely. That's exactly the word. And I think that's cool. I mean, I think, especially as engineering teams are moving faster than ever, giving yourself tools to be able to keep up, not everything needs to be, designed from first principles. A lot of patterns are repeated, especially once you have a design system. Just this kind of like idea explosion and then come curate, I think is actually a cool process to give ourselves. So anyway, there's a lot of technological challenges around like building your agent human collaboration. Another example is like embedding inside of Codex, inside of Claude Code, embedding inside of Cursor. Everyone wants that now. So putting Paper inside. And so all of these things work in different ways, in terms of like how the technology works. It's really cool. I mean, it's like a cool challenge to go build all this stuff. And I think over time, we'll see patterns settle a little bit more and they'll be more like one way. Because right now you need to build a plugin for Cursor and for Claude Code and for Codex, and they all have, slight differences. And embedding works differently. But it's cool. I think like once you do see that market pull and people just want to use it in all these different ways, that becomes your next challenge of actually making that possible. And so that's something we're working on at the moment.
Yeah, tell me a little bit. We've been talking to folks about how they build, and one of the things that really sticks out to us about the way you guys build, it's like I remember with the pen tool that came out, people are like, "What are you working on a pen tool for? Shouldn't you be working on like some other thing?" And you're like, "Well, we started working on it a year ago, and it's only coming out now. So the stuff we're seeing now will, so it's a lot of constraint or restraint, I think, to build that way." How do you decide what's worth spending time on? And then also, how do you decide what's worth investing that much time, especially in a world like today where just things are going in days and weeks, not months and years?
It's tricky. And you see a lot of companies having success with, products they can build in 2 weeks or something like this. And we have this product you can't build like agents can't build a design tool in 2 weeks. They're not even really close yet. And so I do think you can build a design tool a lot faster than you used to be able to, but it's still you're talking in years for some of these things. And to have quality and depth that's actually meaningful as a tool, like that's what takes the investment. I think one of the things that's unique about us is we care about that. And a bet we're making is depth kind of still matters, like quality and depth is still really important in software. We had our first team meetup last week, and we were talking about values, and one of the values was kind of like the art of software. Like we all just love making software. Our heroes were like the people that made Photoshop, or like, people made 3D Studio Max or game engines. And so this really, really Figma, this really, really high quality software is kind of like what we are most interested in building. And I hope it's what the market ends up wanting. I think so far so good on that. But that's kind of like, it's almost driven by our passions as much as anything. And I do still think when you're using tooling, you want the best. I think the best design tool has always won throughout history so far, and I think that'll continue to be true. So yeah, I think it is hard though when the pace is so fast and you're doing these deep projects. And so what we do is every person at the company basically has their own project. So one person's working on vector editing for a very long time, and what you get is almost like it's like, software is somewhere between writing a book and building a house. And when you build a house, you can throw 100 people at it. And when you write a book, you can't really more authors doesn't make a better book. And so we are closer to the more authors doesn't make a better book approach. So if you go really deep on vector editing, a pen tool for a year, you're going to build the best possible pen tool. And so this only matters in markets where quality matters. If you're going to go build something where quality doesn't matter, don't use that approach. You should build the house, but it's kind of one of the reasons, exactly. And it's one of the reasons we picked this market was quality. We think quality doesn't matter and we can make those investments. It's ongoing too. You're always monitoring. We do every 6 weeks, we kind of adjust, we're like, what's the plans are in 6-week cycles. And a lot of projects are completed within about 6 weeks is kind of how we work.
So if you're working on something, let's say like the person who was working on vector, was it a full year?
It wasn't a full year. It was like October part-time. I think around December started full-time, January. So maybe real full-time work, maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that. Pen tool is one of the deepest possible. We're doing vector networks, which is a very complicated topic, and there's so many things to do. It's a product in and of itself, really. I guess the point is it doesn't really compete with tokens because the person working on tokens is not the same person working on vector editing, in our format. And what you want to do is kind of layer projects. That's how you get velocity, is having a lot of projects happening at once. And we're very ambitious, with it. So we try to do a lot at once. Yeah.
And you're basically every 6 weeks, assessing, hey, is this still worth putting another 4, 5, 6 months? Or should I be back at, telling this guy to let's wrap it up. We've done enough. Let's get this thing out. Let's move on.
We do I think of it in terms of appetite. You might have heard that term before of what's our appetite for this right now, to make an investment in it. And I love that term. It's the right term for because if you don't have appetite for something and someone keeps working on it, it's going to be weird. It's going to get weird. They're going to be posting updates. You're not going to be excited about it. So it just gets weird. And so I do think adjusting based on your appetite fairly frequently is good. Most of our projects do complete within 6 weeks though. So it's only those, and going into vector editing, that's going to be a big investment.
It's a meaty one.
It's a meaty one, so that was no surprise. I think it's important to, plan in long chunks, but also adjust frequently, reassess priorities frequently.
And then how do you think about the marketing of this stuff? Because I do notice you have either you're naturally good at it, or the features you work on are very interesting to folks. But it's hey, we have a pen tool, and it's okay, that's fine, that's not that exciting. And then it's just hundreds of thousands of people are talking. Why? Can you say a little bit about just how you think about shipping features and how to market features and what you guys are trying to do there?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I don't fully understand it. So I'm grateful that we have this platform to talk about what we're doing. I think that the company is all builders and designers and engineers, and almost everyone here does both. And so I think that authenticity comes through in the marketing. I think that there's the values in marketing is really important. I think if you have the same values as the market and the users, they will forgive a lot. They will forgive your missing table stakes if they really believe in you and think that you are values aligned with what they care about. And I think because we are all designers and builders, that's very true for paper. We are not, some companies are GTM led or sales led. We are the farthest possible opposite. We are incredibly designer and product led. And I think that resonates. And so when we talk about stuff, we're just talking about things we're excited by. And I think that almost gives you a free alignment to what other designers and builders are excited by. And I think it compounds over time too. Our first tweets were not huge bangers, but over time we've been able to like build more and more trust in what we're doing. And so now the most I hear is like faster, like components. Why aren't they there yet? You know, go faster on table stakes. But I do think it's like
Must
a
go
value.
faster. It's like
We're
Jurassic Park,
trying.
the
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
running away from the running away from the dinosaur.
That's like the competition coming. Yeah. But I really think it goes back to values and like being values aligned. So we're not like super tactical. We make most of the videos in house, and we're like teaching ourselves how to do videos as we go. And it's I think that's really fun too. Is like we get to build an internal agency almost for these launches. So yeah, no secret sauce. I think love what you do. Make sure you talk about that you love what you do, and you'll find similar minded people, that also love the same thing.
Let me give you one theory, and you tell me if it resonates. I think one thing we see is just like the things that one of the things that people love online or love seeing are just like unreasonable people. Meeting folks that just go so above and beyond what normal people would do, right? And whether that be creators, whether that be musician, it's like someone who just like studied this one type of music and is now an expert in it or whatever it is, and I think when you're something like the pen tool, if you guys just did a good job, or even like like a real solid job on it, I think it just wouldn't be that interesting. But I think there's like 3 or 4 things that you did with it where it just feels like, oh, that's someone that just like went so far down the rabbit hole, and they came back with these beautiful, new, weird insights and a way to use a pen tool that we've just never seen before. And it's just clear that the only way they got there, it wasn't through a weekend of tinkering. It was through like months and months and months. And the more we get into these cycles that are days and weeks or hours, the more that someone spending months or a year on something just becomes this extraordinary thing. And I think that comes through, right? Because you typically will say, hey, we have this new pen tool. And it's not just like, oh, here's like, it works like other pen tools does. It's actually like we have this pen tool and it actually like, it does some things that you've never seen a pen tool do. And we only got here by like geeking out like maniacs on this thing.
Yeah, bringing new opinions.
Yeah, so I think you guys do a good job of just communicating that you're wired that way.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's true. I mean, that's definitely true. I think Alex, who led the pen tool, he has been writing blog posts about vector editing for 10 years. Like it's and a thing we actually think about when we're hiring is like trying to find dream jobs for people. It's like, what is the job that's like the most perfect job for you? Because one, you're going to geek out in that way about it. 2, you're going to have so much energy for it. It's kind of the same way I selected building this company over something else. Is like, I will wake up in the morning loving what I do. And so I was just like, it'll be easy in a way. Sometimes it's hard, but it's mostly easy. And so even when we're hiring, when we find like someone like Alex, who's like, life's work is almost like building the best possible pen tool. It's like, you're in, let's go. And we try to do that all over the place, with all the different roles. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting, because before you've talked about like brilliant generalists, but this feels like a employee job fit gone to some crazy length. It's just like, instead of just being like, hey, we're looking for a product designer, who's into product designers? The next level would be like, hey, we're looking for product designers who are super into design tools. Or the next level is like, we're looking for product designers who are super into design tools, who literally have spent their career just thinking about pen tools. And there's 3 of them, but we're going to go after those 3, like me, like just, you know what I mean? Like there's that level of, we want you, and here's why.
I think so. And I mean, I think, Alex, as an example, is also a brilliant generalist. He just virtualized our layer tree for a performance thing. So it's like he's all over the place. But I think that like, yeah, I think so. I think and you have to be patient in hiring to do this, by the way. And you have to have a small team. Like you can't just go find people like this instantly. You have to be pretty patient, and you have to be actively reaching out. I found Alex through a blog post he did, and I reached out and I was like, hey, do you want to chat? Like, I think we're into similar things. Do you want to like talk about vector editing? And to
yes,
months.
I do. That's all I talk about.
Exactly.
You and me and one other person. Interesting.
but I think, design tools support this depth. Like it matters in design tools to have this depth and this quality. So yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about fundraising. Um, you've had a company before. When you think about the fundraising process now and advice that let's say a founder's like, hey, I want to start a company, I'm thinking about fundraising. What are some of the like lessons learned over the course of these two companies that you feel
Oh
have
yeah.
made you good at fundraising?
Well, the second time around is way easier, especially if you had a mild success the first time. I mean, for lack of a better word, the leverage has switched entirely. So second time founders, if you want to be a second time founder and you're worried about fundraising, if you have any track record of success, don't be, because you will have a much better time the second time around. But even if you're your first time around, like, I just think it's such a great time to build companies. There's so much change in the air right now, and then incumbents, like large companies, are forcing their employees to go try new software. It's a rare thing. Like Shopify famously is like mandating designers have to try AI products and performance reviews. Usually you have to like claw and scratch to get companies to pay attention to you. And now they're like forcing their employees out. So like, this is a great time to build. Go start a company. I really believe in it. So with fundraising, I mean, we're still learning too, but I think it's important that you really like the people you take money from. And because and like, you should be like very comfortable texting with them, and very like almost like you will build a friendship over time. It's a long-term thing that you're doing, and you want people who are values aligned in your camp, because otherwise they're going to push you to do weird stuff you don't understand, and you'll have to spend time explaining why that's not the right thing to do, or whatever. And so I think when we fundraise, I was really looking for like, who do I feel very values aligned with? Who kind of gets what we're doing at a high level? Who's advocating for what we're doing naturally without me having to put energy into it? And then I also tend to pick you could be strategic with it too. Like whose network does this VC firm have, or like what are some of their portfolio companies, and do you want to know those founders? So I think there's some like level of tactical positioning that you should pay attention to. And you saw our deck. Like, our deck is very simple. It's almost nothing. And I think, on the tactical level, like when you're fundraising, you never want to say anything that's wrong. I think this is where people get a little messed up, is they build this like 30-page deck. It has all this information, and like 10% of that information is just like clearly wrong. And an investor is going to be like, that's wrong. And I think when investors see something that's wrong, it's like the conversation is over. And so I'd almost like say less is a big thing I have in fundraising, is like, say your strengths, let them ask questions if they want to, and like, be prepared for that. But don't, I see these huge 30-page decks, and I'm like, I don't think I mean, maybe it works for other folks, but it hasn't, we like to be very clean and concise and talk to our strengths and be very honest and transparent too about what we're doing. So these are some of my tips. What resonates for you out of that?
Well, I think for us, so certainly I would say that the relationship, people underestimate the relationship part of the investor-founder relationship. And in many ways, but a big way is kind of it's almost like dating the first few days or the first few weeks. It's like, can I envision myself with this person for a long time? Like, if I see a calendar, it's like, let's say it's Monday and I see a meeting with this person on Thursday. Am I looking forward to that? Not just as like, hey, I don't mind it, but like, am I just like, am I counting down the day? Kind of the butterflies that you got from first dating someone that you were just so excited about. Are you getting that? It's like, oh, this person just energizes me, and it should go both ways, right? So that I think is a big thing that we talk to founders about. And then I do think like there is a right now I do think there's like classes of companies, and I think it's really important for folks to communicate to investors that you're part of kind of the AI class of companies, because it does feel. And the other day I was joking, there's like two classes, there's like AI companies and non-AI companies, but actually there's like three classes, right? There's like Elon Musk companies, which like just defy all reason and logic. Then there's the AI companies, which like they have some multiple or whatever that you can see like where in the market those, and then everything else, which like feels like people call them like company, 2000 companies from the 2018 or 2020. I've heard investors go, this seems fine, but it seems like a 2020 company. As if like, hey, but there were some good fucking companies founded in 2018, 2019, 20. It's not like all those companies are, I could run down the list of multi-billion-dollar companies founded before 2020, man.
Totally. I kind of agree with you with that. Yeah. I think maybe investors tend to be kind of pack animals, as almost like a safety mechanism. And like, I do wonder if we've over rotated. Like, there are great companies that aren't directly in AI that will emerge. I guess it's a little harder to pick them maybe, but anyway, I do think maybe we've over rotated a little bit in terms of investment, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think just telling the story of how you fit into this new universe and your point of view around how the product and service that you're building is fits into that universe really well is something that's really important. Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about you as a founder CEO. How do you think about I guess how long were you at how long did Modulz last? 4 years, right? So we're still like in that right, like window. How are you thinking about kind of like the difference in you as a founder and CEO now relative to what it was then? Like, what are the places that you're forcing yourself to get good at? Where are the areas you're delegating?
Yeah, I think so. I was a CTO role at Modulz, right? So this is my first rodeo. I was like the
Oh, right. So that's different. Yeah. You get to call the shots now.
Which, by the way, I love solo founding, and I saw there's was it in YC the other day? There was something about the rise of 40-year-old solo founders. I'm 40. And I think there's something there. Like, there's something interesting. Like, you had, this is a great era for solo founding. I find solo founding is, you have no decision-making cost, right? So like, when you see something, you can make it happen. You don't need to talk to anyone. There's no alignment tax on anything. And I think at Modulz, we spent a lot of time talking about what to do because we wanted to get on the same page. We wanted to share, what are we talking about? And like, looking back, that was a lot of hours. The value of an hour of anyone's time who's worked on this company is ridiculous. Like, it's almost like and as the numbers keep going up, the value of your time is so important. And so you really need to spend it on like the higher order thing for the company. And so I've gotten very, very bottlenecks focused. It's something you hear Elon talk about, sometimes is like the bottleneck is all you can think about. And so that's all I think about now, because there's so many things you can do, but it's like, what's the next bottleneck to growing your business, and just putting all of your focus on that, because I don't think you get very much focus and you don't get very much time. And so you need to make it count. And
can you give us a couple examples of bottlenecks that were, I don't know, 3-6 months ago, a bottleneck was X and this is how I solved it. And then another like, what are a couple bottlenecks that you feel like you've solved?
One of them was not being connected into the AI ecosystem. So we had this human editor, and this was kind of by design, but we didn't have any AI features yet. And so there wasn't a lot of adoption. There was some adoption from brand designers, but none from product designers, because they had moved to coding agents. And so I saw them using coding agents, and it was kind of like incompatible with paper. And so there was like, there's something here. It's like they can't adopt it, and kind of in a big way. And so shipping the MCP was the way we resolved that. And that we quickly saw that was like, woof, huge new, like the funnel has expanded in a huge way. And now what it feels like is actually table stakes are a bottleneck in a way that wasn't true before. So if we had shipped design tokens back then, it wouldn't have done very much. It would have got we would have had 5 new users that really loved our design tokens. Now we have this huge user base, and they're all like, where are design tokens? And by the way, they shipped this week, so they're out. So
yes, sir. And you're basically, because now it's like, I can see this tool being my daily driver tool, except for it's missing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, exactly. And so now our bottleneck is like, especially the collaboration features, these bigger teams are ready to adopt paper, but they're like, another example of this small example is cursor chat and presence on the dashboard, where you can see where other users are inside of files. These are things when you're building the design tool you don't think about. And then when you give it to someone like Ramp, they're like, I need this. I can't adopt this if I don't have these features. And so these are like bottlenecks. These are when I talk about bottlenecks, it's, that next thing that will open up that funnel even wider. And then you'll have more after that too, right? But again, time is so valuable. I don't think you get to spend it in many places. And so that's kind of how I've, this very higher order bottlenecks focused prioritization. And I try to instill that throughout the entire company. All of us are trying to prioritize and think in that way. And this is how you can make bigger investments, by the way, because if you get this right, you're working on the right thing, and you can spend longer on it. And so, yeah, it's been a really important thing. I think we'll continue thinking this way, for the foreseeable future. It's been the way that we've worked.
Before I say goodbye here in the next few minutes, tell me a little bit about how do you envision in the next 3 to 6 months, how do people start using these tools together to get really good quality output? I think, like you said, hey, I'm not so happy quite yet. Like, paper feels like it's doing a better job than other tooling products, but it's still like not quite where you want it to be. How do we bridge that gap to get these tools to actually like get us the quality that we want?
Yeah, I think I'm really interested in spending more time on basically help. Like, so how to say this? I don't think the models getting smarter helps them on this dimension that much. And so the way that if you map the curve of how models are improving and map it to design improvement, it's like, yeah, there's like some correlation to models being smarter and they can do better design. I think Opus 4.8 or Fable is certainly better than like, Sonnet 3.5 or whatever from back in the day, but not in a huge way, not in the same way the intelligence has grown. And so I think it's not a matter of like bigger, smarter models. I think it's a matter of teaching them design fundamentals. And so we put some of that into paper now, where we actually be like, here's how you should think about contrast. Here's how you should think about spacing. I think there's actually very large opportunities to give the models more examples and more data about how design works. Basically taking like, someone like Vlad on our team who's been studying nothing but design fundamentals for 20 years and like pulling it out of his brain and putting it into these files that agents can consume. I do believe you're always going to need the human in the mix, though. I think like the human as the curator, the taste maker, the decision maker. What are we even working on today? I think I'm a big believer that the models are augmenting the human, and it's not like you're going to have. You can have an agent designer, but I think the human designers will always outpace them on quality, at least for the foreseeable future. And so, yeah, when I think about making the models better, it's also like, how do we help them reduce boilerplate work? So generating new variations of frames. Maybe the human designer figured out the design, but they need to ship it in 8 different ways. And there's a lot of like boilerplate work involved in that. So let's save them 8 hours of that. Let them get on to the next design, the next taste, the next important thing, and have the models handle, some of that busy work. I think that's, for me in the short term, that's actually more exciting than making the models good design, visual designers. But I think over the long term, I'd like to work on both. So yeah, and we'll see. And I do think as the models improve, a lot like we will get. What I see is like they put things in context better. They don't make weird mistakes quite as much as they used to. But the overall like understanding of visual language is still only so in my opinion. What do you think? What have you seen?
I mean, I'm still shocked at just how bad it is still. Like I really do. It's like. Yeah, I try some of the latest models and the latest everything, and I try to give it a lot of structure. And still, someone sends me a website, and I'm like, that's AI, and I can't. I could see it right. There's just little tells here and there where and the whole thing just falls apart for me once I see that. It's almost like seeing like a picture frame that was mass produced, and you just see like the way the things come together, or like little, and you're just like, yeah, okay, I know exactly what that is, and. I can't explain it to you either, like, but it just feels, and maybe I'm one of, maybe right now it's like I'm one of, if there's a group of 50 people, maybe 1 or 2 people would notice that, and over time it becomes only 1 in 100 and 1 in 500, and maybe that becomes less of a thing.
I know that dimension doesn't interest me very much. It doesn't seem like there's a great ending there. I totally agree. I think that's why for now we're more focused on augmenting, professional human designers with saving them time. I think that the agents are good at saving you time. And I also think that like if you're trying to build a big successful business, design matters more than ever because there's so much stuff out there that design is a way to elevate above, that kind of thing. And so why would you can't have the B- design and elevate yourself. You have to have A+ design, to elevate yourself. And so I think that creates an environment where the design it matters so much and human design matters so much. And so we are very, very we're not moving away from that in any way. Like all of our interest is in like supporting human designers as much as possible.
And by the way, I will say that even so, what you just said, there are so many AI companies that focus on the what and very little about what they believe in. So, let's say you're a company that like, hey, we can all make whatever apps and websites, okay? And if you're a professional designer, you look at that, you say, is this tool for me? Is this tool trying to replace me? What do you stand for? Because I know the things that you do, but I don't know where you're going with this thing. And I think paper is very clear, like, we're going to do everything in our power to support, like professional creatives. That's what we stand for. That's what we're going to be about, right? And if you break that contract, people are going to understand that. But as long as you keep going down that path, you can see just how the community has so quickly rallied here, because they do feel like they're not sure what all these other tools stand for. And so if you say, hey, actually, we do stand for you guys. We do want you to continue to have work. We do want to continue to support the way you work and just make you more powerful and reduce the busy work. That's a big flag that designers want to rally around right now. And I think that matters.
I think back to your point of like, why do people care about our pen tool tweet? Is like, that's the feeling, and it's just authentic. It's what we care about. It's what excites us. So yeah, thank you. It's actually really nice to hear that. It's like, yes, exactly.
Last question. Is there a book, essay, idea, movie, show, something like some piece of media that recently like stood out to you, that's something that has really just stuck with you or influenced your way of thinking, influenced your approach?
That's a great question. I should have a better answer for that. I think so. I'm looking at my bookshelf of recent books I've read. I recently read Hackers and Painters, which is the Paul Graham compilation of essays, and excellent stuff. A lot of the early Paul Graham stuff or the YC stuff influences our company building for sure.
Even though you're not a YC company.
We're not a YC company, no, but
but you just like the ethos.
Yeah, I think they've really figured out how startups work in a lot of ways.
They have the operating system.
They have the operating system. I think it's a good, and you can take the parts that work for you and leave the parts that don't. But like overall, I think it's really, really good stuff. So we base a lot on that. And I mean, I'm always kind of consuming different art books or design books just to kind of like keep it in my mind. So we have like, I'm not going to go pull these down, but even like stuff on grid systems or whatever, just to flip through it, just like, it's like stay immersed inside of that and not get too computer, because you can get sucked into your computer all day, but like get back into some like, a great example, a guru who works on our team, we're making paper mono, which is a new font that's about to release. I'm really excited about. And he made, for no, like, I didn't ask him to do this. He made an entire magazine of paper mono designs exploring the typeface in all the various possible ways. And he went and printed it out on like professional printed paper and brought them to our meetup just for the joy of like designing and like making print and handing it out. So gosh, if I was going to pick like something I've seen recently that was inspiring, that was it. And we'll post it up on, so people can check this out. It's really beautiful work that he did. And it was so cool to see him explore, this new typeface that we're launching just for the joy of it. There was no business outcome from that. It was just, this is really fun. And so let's do it. So, yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. I mean, again, it comes back to like, what do we value? How do we think? And it's like, hey, we do this thing. Guess what? We went so deep on this typeface. We think it's like worthy of the printed page, right? That has weight. And that has a presumption of a certain quality, right? And that's kind of how we approach the work. And that, again, it's like it's another proof point in kind of the actions standing by the values.
100%. And hiring people who it's like their dream to do these things, right? Because they'll just pour so much energy and passion into it. So yeah, we're lucky and blessed to have such a great team, and excited to launch Paper Mono too for the community.
Beautiful. Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, super fun, Ben. Nice to see you.